So let's give it up to IppSec. I am
Hey,
so glad that I have you here in the stream. How do you feel?
a bit nervous, but good. How about yourself?
Why nervous? Oh, this one
I
was
mean, I normally don't do these things, so just nervous of doing something new.
Yes, I know, but we do it for a good cause. We
Yep.
do it for cyber apocalypse, and the guru is going to give some amazing tricks for his for the CTF that we have tomorrow for all of our players. And also, we with the CTF we're donating also $10K to Doctors Without Borders, and we have amazing prizes as well. So, how have you been, Ipsec?
I've been good. No complaints here. The weather's been a bit bad, lots of rain lately, but outside of that, everything's good. How about yourself?
Uh, if we try to remove from the conversation my run and no situation, unfortunately, everything is perfect. I have to say something that whatever guys you feel that you see IppSec in the stream, it was very different when we also have to work with each other. Because at first it was like, oh my God, IppSec is showing up. I have like to be my best. Like it took us some time to understand he's a real human being and to not treat him like God, but to be able to not have this hype and make a fool of ourselves. Uh, so now, honestly, have I made a lot of fool of myself when I first met you?
No, I don't think so. Not at all. I like. I don't know. I don't really view myself that way as a lot of people view me. Like, I know every time we like do these things, I'm like, oh, chill down on the intro a bit because like I just want to be a dude, right?
Yeah.
So
It was very also something that I really liked that you did is that the first time that you showed your face after 3-4 years of creating videos, it was for a good cause. Not for not with us, with UHC
yeah,
that you did this stream. So kudos for that, IppSec. Amazing ethics. And are you ready to start with the questions?
I think so. I hope nothing's too
No,
hard.
and he leaves the stream. I don't want to do this at the end. Okay, so if someone also wants to know a little bit more about IppSec and an interview, he did an amazing blog, IppSec interviewing IppSec, and I love your quote. I love that quote. I think I died when I saw when I like I was laughing on the floor when you saw. I think I know pretty much pretty good myself, so I decided to do this interview.
Mhm.
It was so funny. Well, kudos also for this. Uh, so let's go with the first one. What else do you enjoy besides hacking?
uh, I'm not actually at the computer a lot nowadays outside of working and doing the videos, which now because I work for Hack the Box, I can make the videos part of my job. So that's always nice. Outside of it, I always like doing like social sports. So I'm in a kickball and softball league locally. We have friends that play a bunch of board games. So like I remember being part of a D&D group with other people that were in tech, but they
Okay.
weren't really hackers. And no one really knew like I had the YouTube channel until like after like 8 months in a D&D campaign, which I always found
Really?
funny. Um, but outside of like D&D, I play like Dominions, that was a Catan, Red Dragon Inn, Munchkin. Like I love board games, and it's one of
Yeah.
my favorite things to do like at conferences because when we go, um, I don't really go for like the actual talks as much as I do for hanging out in the hotel and just playing board games. So yeah,
Okay. So it depends on the talk, though. I do not believe it will have like a 0 day from Waldo, and you will be playing the board games.
oh no, I still go to the talks. Like it's more of an excuse for friends all over the world to get together. And then we
Yes,
all go watch the talks, do whatever the party is sometimes. But after the talks, we normally end up back in a hotel room and just play board games.
that's very nice. So you bring your own board games with you?
Yeah, everyone brings their own board game and we kind of switch it up between nights.
Oh, that's so cool. And the next question it is: how did you decide to start your career in cybersecurity?
Um, I think it was kind of a mistake, honestly. Like, so
Okay.
back in like high school, like I've always been into tech. My brother is 7 years older than me, and he's also into tech. So a lot of it was kind of like learning through osmosis of just
Okay.
like following his footsteps. But I've never been one to do a lot of paperwork. And in high school, I was in like advanced placement for psychology because I wanted to be like a psychologist because the brain always fascinated me. But I
Okay.
never applied to college. And then my plan was to go into the Air Force, but I didn't apply to that either. And one of my teachers in high school was also a college professor, put my resume in with like his college students. And I got a job without them knowing I was a high schooler because of a blog I had ran along with some other things. So that got me in the door like as a sysadmin. And I've always been like that at the heart. And I think the main thing that drives like the difference between me and other people is I always want to learn how things work. Like I always make the joke like a bad sysadmin is going to put automation in to just restart things and keep things running. So like if you have a Java application, the other sysadmin at that job, like in 2008 or something, I forget what it was, just had something in, it was either Nagios or HP OpenView, I forget which one, that would just restart the application whenever it crashed. And I was like, well, why is it crashing every 5 days? And I wanted to know. So I hooked up into a JMX console, which gives you debugging information in Java apps, and noticed a memory leak. I think it was in like the Eden memory space. And I didn't know anything like that at the time. I just did a bunch of research and kind of tried to figure that out. And I think that's what helps me a lot in security is because I always just keep pulling on a thread and setting goals to try to keep learning. So I've always been sysadmin because of that. I think is what led me into security because I had a deep understanding of just how things worked.
Okay.
And I didn't get into videos to teach, which many people think I did or share my knowledge. I had a speech impediment called rhoticism, which has like Kripke and the Big Bang Theory. It's hard to say R's. I think Elmer Fudd also has it. So, also when I was just out of high school, I funded a esports tournament called the Open Wolf Cup. It's in StarCraft 2. And I did a lot of commentating then. The whole reason I funded it was so I could commentate StarCraft 2, because at the time that was my passion. I've always been like a big gamer and things like that. And I ended up having a job opportunity to move to Korea to cast StarCraft 2. At the same time, I got a job potentially as a security person, but I had to pass the OSCP. So I quit my current job. And then I said, if I'm going to fail the OSCP in 45 days, I'll just move to Korea and I'll live my life as an esport commentator. If I pass it, I'll do the security thing. If I like it, I'll stick with it. And here I am. Like, I liked it, did it for a year, and I was like, well, I need to keep talking. So I opened a YouTube channel while I did Hack the Box. And I guess like 4 or 5 years later, here I am.
Okay, and I think that is a very nice way to jump into the next question, which is why did you decide to join Hack the Box at the end of the day?
Yeah, so I guess this is a two-part question. I don't know if it's exactly why I joined the platform or why I joined the company, right? I
Join
joined
the
the
company, I
platform.
think.
I'll answer both. We have time.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, of course. Plenty of time.
Yeah. So I remember like I had passed OSCP. I was done with the whole like vulnerable thing. Like a lot of the challenges I didn't like at the time because they were quote unquote like CTFE, which I hate that word, but here I am using it. But when I think of that word, I think of it like a lot of the challenges try to talk to the player to tell them to do something. So if you see like a to do.txt saying, I need to patch this thing and create like a checklist of things to do, or some like cheesy email, like talking to the player, telling them. I didn't really like that type of stuff because the most important thing to me when doing these challenges is recon. And when people just tell you what to do, you lose out on that recon. And if you keep losing out on the recon, you get really good at just like typing in the commands to exploit things, but not actually finding them. So you end
Okay.
up getting into these spots where you're doing work and you can't spot the vulnerabilities that are there because someone's always told you they were there. When in reality, if you like do it quote unquote the hard way, you learn things like, oh, I'm going to look at timestamps to see if this file was placed there by the package manager or actual user, or this login takes half a second longer than all the other logins, so it's probably a valid username. You don't learn all those subtle recon things on a lot of other platforms, at least at that time, but Hack the Box you did. So I remember the first box I did was like through a Google chat of a friend asking a question about bypassing an XSS filter. And at the time, I forget exactly what CTF was going on, but someone cheated at a CTF
Okay.
and they did a weird IP tables rule to make their IPs look like they came from some 3-letter agency or something and block traffic and like just take the whole CTF down for select teams. But they
Wow.
did that after doing a bunch of like IP encoding. And the challenge in Hack the Box was actually, I don't think it was based upon that. Goblin, I think, created the challenge, but it was based upon using an IP address not in its normal way, either like hexadecimal octal format. So not like 192.168.1.1, it would be in the hex format, and you bypassed a filter. And I knew that from just reading a blog. And when someone told me that, I was like, where'd you actually encounter this? And they told me Hack the Box. I joined the platform and been with it ever since. And I've always liked that it tries to go out of the way to make sure you learn how to do recon. And that's probably
Nice.
why I've stuck with it. Talked about kind of why I joined the company a bit earlier. It's mainly because I really enjoy the platform and think it's a really good thing. I was a sysadmin slash pen tester slash whatever, like jack of all trades at my last company. And unfortunately, it was on site, so I was driving a lot, and I didn't want to keep driving. I wanted to move away from the city, get a house. So I did that, and Hack the Box was the like my passion at the time, so I joined it.
Perfect. And I think everyone, every single one in Hack the Box is very happy that we have you officially on board. I believe also I was the one saying, well, when are you when are you going to join? When are you going to join? Please join, please join. So thank you very much for coming on board and for doing this massive uh, work with the community as well.
Yeah,
And
I remember a funny story before I joined. I forget exactly what year it was. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. Yeah, probably then. The whole like timeline of me is screwed lately, but me, OXDF, and two other friends, Barry and Kyle, had flown from US to Germany for a Sans Net Wars competition. It was like the European thing, European Championship. And we eventually won that. But one of the selling points was Chap flew from, I want to say he was in Greece at the time, probably, but he flew from
yes,
there to Germany just to hang out with me for a day and said, one day I'll get you to work for the company. And like, he's been very persistent and he eventually won.
yes, I remember also this day because he was at the office
Yeah.
and he finished his work and he said, now I'm going to catch a plane and I'm going to talk to him. So I'm like, oh, yes, when did you plan? And he said, no, I didn't plan this trip. He's there. I'm going to meet him. I'm going to catch a flight. And like, he didn't have even the baggage or something. He just took his backpack and he came to meet you.
Yeah.
Uh, Okay, so let's go to this question. How do you imagine yourself in 10 years from now?
10 years from now, I'm hoping I'm doing the same thing. I enjoy life right now. So that means videos. I'd hope to do more videos. I always try to get like 2 to 3 videos a week, but I've been stressed about keeping up with the whole weekly cycle. But I've started kind of fixing that because we may have some changes in the future that make machines retire a bit quicker. So bit spoilery there. But that means I have to be quicker at machines, which means I'll be able to put more videos out, which is good. So I hope in 10 years I'm still doing YouTube videos and working for Hack the Box.
We wish the same also. And I can imagine you're like, no, not another release, not another video. No, more keeps videos. We want them. So a question that came from the chat, and thank you, Emma, for adding it here now. What is in your bookshelf? And what do you read?
Oh, so the bookshelf behind me, let's see, which hand is it? This hand. That shelf is like offensive books. That shelf is defensive books. And that is random books. I have another bookshelf out of my office that has a bunch of non-technical books. There's the Expanse series in the cabinet that is next to the bookshelf over there, I want to say. But yeah, huge fan of books. And then I have 3 books on the table because I'm assuming there's me a question about my favorite books.
Okay. And what is your favorite book?
Uh, Favorite book probably would be Cuckoo's Egg, which I don't have that book because I have it on Kindle and Audible. But
Okay.
yeah.
And do you read also other stuff like literature or psychology that you said that you really liked?
Oh yeah, there's like I want to say the bottom shelf. I forgot to say. It's like a Shakespeare library of all his stuff.
Shakespeare inspired box when?
Maybe
It
one
could be
day.
fun. Maybe one day.
It may have to be
Uh,
a prolab. His stories are pretty complex.
I like the reference. Yes, it is. Oh, yes. And each host can be a different play, or the play is developed throughout the different hosts. Next level. So, how do you train and keep your skills sharp? How do you keep up with security?
Um, it's always just staying on the latest trend of what people are talking on. A long time ago, it was like Slashdot, Hacker News, Dig. It moved over to Reddit, NetSec, and now it's mainly on Twitter to stay like on top of the latest vulnerabilities. How do I train to keep my skills sharp? I would say it's mainly just like who I am. Like I always set miniature goals and try to accomplish those goals on a weekly, monthly, etc. basis. Maybe the OKR system kind of mirrors what I do internally, but I don't have any college experience. All my learning has been self-taught. So I view that as like my expertise. And it started out like middle high school era. Like I ran a blog and I didn't know what I was going to write about, but I put 3 posts out a week with friends, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because we liked XKCD comics and we followed their release cycle. But it always forced us to learn new things and just like coordinate. I'm going to be learning this. You're going to learn this. You're going to learn this. And just keeping up, always trying to measure progress over months. Hack the Box has been great for that because now I don't have to really pick what I'm going to learn. Hack the Box picks for me with what retires, and the week it retires is normally me struggling learning all the technologies the box uses and putting out the video.
What you said, that's very nice. We should use it. Anyone from marketing that is watching this, that actually Hack the Box is picking what you will learn by the boxes that retire. For sure, I know. I remember that I always watch your videos every Saturday. Even if I'm cleaning, if I have to do something else and I will not play the machine, I always put it in the background. It's like something sacred that you do every weekend, at least for the hackers. Um, and what you said, I'm going to skip some questions and I will go to this one and then we will go to the ones that we
Yeah.
had before. To what you said, that does degree matters in cybersecurity? And I think the answer is
I don't think it matters that much, but I still think you should do it. It's one of my regrets in life is not following through with college. And it's not so much about the degree, it's about like the whole social aspect. At least in the United States, there's a lot of cool things for college students to do, like the National Cyber League, the CCDC, Hack the Box has Uni CTF. Like there's a lot of just programs out there that are for college students, and you meet a lot of other people that are into the same thing as you locally. And like I can't imagine what life would be like without my CTF buddies like OXDF, right? And like we can't be friends with everyone because it's so much time, but there's hundreds of people, count like not hundreds, like millions of people like us that are just like waiting to be found in those types of things. So I think the college campus in general is just like a breeding ground for social friendships and things like that. I talked about it on, I forget what podcast, it may have been like Live Recon, but I never really went to college, but I social engineered my way into a cybersecurity club to meet people and eventually got kicked out. But like, I
what?
really,
Wait, story time. Story time. What
yeah.
happened?
The college club was for college students only, and I wasn't a college student.
Okay, and how you catfish them?
How'd I what?
You catfish them, like how you social engineer them?
Oh, I just attended the like. I walked in one day and said I was a student.
Okay, I thought maybe you made a fake ID or something.
No.
Uh, okay.
That being said, that now
Oh,
past statute of limitation. Back in high school, it's a good story. I'm from a really small town, and we didn't have enough parking spots for everyone. And there was a grocery store across the street that if you worked there, you could park in the parking lot. So it was either um, wake up at 4:30, which was like 2 hours before class start, to get a good spot on quote unquote the hill. Or if you didn't wake up that way, it's like a mile and a half walk after you drove. So it's like, why drive at that point? Or you worked at this grocery store and you could park in their lot and you just had to hang your badge from the visor so you didn't get towed. Well, I tried to work there. I couldn't get a job there. They didn't hire me. So
Okay.
I had a friend there and we faked a badge and I hung that so I could park in their lot.
Nice. Okay. That is also something about security. What they do, like delegating that you pass through doors with someone else, or that you copy access cards. Uh, but let's not take the discussion there, as it's illegal. Let's change topic and let's go back to more hackish things. What distro do you use as your daily driver?
I'm still on Windows right now. When I first started doing Hack the Box videos, I was on Fedora because um, I was a sysadmin, like I've always said, and most of what we used was Red Hat or CentOS. And Fedora is closest related to those. I didn't want to use CentOS for some reason. I forget exactly what. I think it was mainly because Fedora is like future Red Hat. So all the technology that eventually goes into Red Hat starts out at Fedora because that's what they use for like beta. So that's what I was using for my daily driver because I would be familiar with things like Firewall D before CentOS or Red Hat implements Firewall D, which was handy to me. The downside is it was beta and unstable. So there were a few times when I went to record and like the NVIDIA driver wasn't supported and I had to like struggle just to get my OS booted so I could record a video. So I switched to Windows because I just wanted things to work. Maybe one day I'll go back to using Linux. I like the X11 subsystem and I mean, what is it? It's not X11. i8. I like the i8 window manager a lot, but I haven't used it for years. So
Okay. What about macOS?
I have a Mac laptop. Also when I first started, I would record my videos with OBS on Linux and then copy it over to my Mac, which had iMovie on it, because that was the easiest to use free video editor.
Okay.
When I switched to Windows, I also bought a desktop, which is a bit more powerful than my laptop. So instead of 3 hours to encode a 1 hour video, now I can encode that in like 20 minutes, which is a huge plus for me. It always sucked being like, well, I'm going to hit this encode button, and 3 hours later, I can begin the upload process to YouTube. I like Macs, but I've been a fan of Windows mainly because of sysmod lately,
Okay.
because I don't think Mac or Linux has nearly as much visibility into what the operating system is doing. So when it
True.
comes to like persistence, finding persistence on Linux is incredibly tough because it can literally be anywhere. Finding persistence on Windows, if they never escalate to admin, it's not a impossible task as it is on Linux.
Okay. That's amazing. Thank you for your intuition and like this security tip why you use the one or the other. And as we say about security tips, our group wants to know what cybersecurity certifications do you have?
I would say every certification I have outside of offensive security is expired. So I don't know if I really have any. Um, I,
Okay.
I I've done a bunch of SAN certifications. I had like the big admin certification from Solaris/Oracle.
Oh,
I failed the CCIE, so I'm still, or I was a CCNA, I want to say, or I forget exactly, or CCNP. It's Cisco certifications. I passed the written test, but failed the hands-on. And then they changed the test on me, so I never like progressed through it. It's one of the reasons why I joined security because I got fed up with certifications.
that's true.
And
And sometimes the certifications cannot always prove that you're amazing, right?
yeah. And the
Uh,
second part of the question, I just realized I didn't answer it.
yes.
What role do I think they play in getting a career? Big one. Like, if I didn't have my YouTube channel, I probably would still be doing the whole certificate game. There's not
Yeah.
many people I know that have both a public presence and also carry a lot of certifications outside of like John Hammond, who just somehow finds the time to get all the certs. It's like Pokemon to him or something. But um, I don't, when I look at resumes, I don't look at what certification you have. I more of look at it like you're continually improving. There's a lot of hate on a lot of certifications like CISSP, Security Plus, CEH, bunch of those. But to me, like I don't look negatively upon those people that have them. Instead, like I just want to make sure like someone gets 2 certifications a year. And if someone's getting 2 certifications a year, that like satisfies my thought that they're always going to be a better person than when I hired them. Because the main thing when I'm like doing an interview that I look at is if we hire them now, in 3 years from now, are they going to be a better employee? And if they're getting 2 certifications every year, the answer is yes, they will, because they're learning outside of work. If they just like get a splurge of certifications at once, like whenever they change jobs, they're just doing that because they change jobs. The motivation or passion isn't there.
Yeah.
If they just have like the hardest certification there is, well, they could have cheated that test and or just coasted for the next few years and don't really possess that knowledge now. Like I don't view certifications as what knowledge you have. I view it more as the character behind you, I guess.
Okay. I understand what you're saying, and it's amazing that we have the same mindset in Hack the Box. And it used to be also, I saw that at my previous work, that it didn't matter. They were recruited people that didn't have a CP or something else, because there were people that had certifications and weren't able to pass the exam. But the ongoing thing, I remember at my first interviews, it was like, what is your Hack the Box rank? What is your Hack the Box profile? How do you maintain the continuous learning that you said?
Yeah. Like if I see a hack the box profile, I see they solve 1 box a week, even if it's just the retired box, I know they're continually improving.
Yeah. And what are your top 3 books for defensive or offensive security?
So this was a really tough question, but I looked at my bookshelf for like 5 minutes because I knew something like this was coming up. And the first one is going to be, of course, the Windows internals book. And I guess this
Yeah.
would be more of maybe defensive and offensive. I learned both from this. It just says how Windows works on the underlayer. So I was a blue team detection person for a long time, and Windows internals helped me build a lot of detection rules and understand things malware does. Okay. I
Okay.
just want to make sure I didn't break that. The Hacker's Playbook, I don't know if this is the most recent one. This is more of just offensive. It does a really good job of talking about a lot of the exploits. I I would start out with the most recent one, and if you really enjoy it, you can read the older ones. They're all great. Um, and then my final one, I wanted it to be like Cuckoo's Egg or Kingpin because I really enjoy those. This is more of the narrative. It's not like about learning, it's just about like a story. But both those that I previously mentioned, Kingpin I have on Audible, Cuckoo's Egg I have on Kindle. So I have a more recent one, Sandworm, which is a really good book as well.
Okay.
That just goes into a lot of tech related security things. So those would probably be my top 3. If you're like a programmer type, go with the Sys Internals book. If you're just like a pen tester, red teamer, you can go with the Hacker's Playbook. If you just want to read, Cuckoo's Egg, Kingpin, Sandworm are all good.
I have to say that the Windows Journal, I haven't read it, but I have read the Hacker's Playbook. It was on my assignments to read it. And it is actually amazing, very explanatory. It teaches you everything. It explains everything. Like Dragonian said, what is a CSP? How you can abuse it? Like understand also the mindset. It's very good. And since you discussed about red or blue team books, uh, how about yourself? How you identify as a red teamer or blue teamer?
I mean, I don't really identify as either. I guess I'm confused in that term.
Okay.
Um, like, I guess maybe purple. Like, I do both. I do blue and red. I don't think you can do one without being good at the other. Like, It's really hard to be a good red teamer if you don't understand the blue team side of things, right? Um, like most of like red teaming, to my knowledge, is reading a lot of documentation, understanding what the blue team set up, and finding ways around that. Like it's hard to understand how to attack Active Directory if you don't know what like group policy, things like that are.
Yes.
So you really have to have both. And as a blue teamer, it's really hard to defend yourself against red teamers if you don't know what they're after, right? Like my favorite like IOC is Who Am I? Because blue teamers generally won't run Who Am I that often because they logged into the system. They know who they are. Like they log
Yeah,
into it every day. Like even if they're using root everywhere, they're not going to run Who Am I after SSHing because they use root day in and day out.
yeah,
Some applications may, but you can just filter that noise out easily, like saying, hey, um, when this application starts up, it runs Who Am I? We can just filter that out. Um, one people like red teamers always run Who Am I when they first get something to see the privilege, and they may run like Who Am I slash priv or Who Am I slash all to see tokens they have, or tools may do that for enumeration. And if you're just flagging on that command being ran, you may find the attacker. And a lot of blue teamers, when I talk to them, they don't understand that aspect. They're looking for that fancy stuff that's really hard to catch, like Eternal Blue. It's really hard to catch that because it works at such a low level of the operating system.
okay.
It's not like catching tools, it's catching techniques, methods, things like that. And it's hard to be a good blue team if you don't understand that. So that's why I
Right.
think being a blue team and doing Hack the Box is beneficial because you understand the types of things they'll do.
Yes, and also battlegrounds can help in that, right?
Yes.
They are amazing for these things. Like, and also like vice versa. The first time that I played battlegrounds, okay, when you write pentest reports, you say how you patch it, but you never actually go to patch it. So in battlegrounds that you actually have to go patch it, it's another level. So I really enjoyed them.
Yeah. My favorite thing about Battlegrounds is I remember like just being in the sysadmin doing stupid compliance things, and I didn't really understand the benefits of blacklisting system from the PHP config, right? But if you
Yeah.
implement that in Battlegrounds, you'll see like how much slower people get. And then you'll also be able to get alerts. Hey, this web application for the first time in 2 years tried to run system. We blocked it. Maybe you should look at it, right? All those things really stick out. And Battlegrounds is a great way at showing that because a lot of defense, in my opinion, goes down to like that blinky box thing where you don't actually understand what's going on. You're just hoping like that blue code or whatever web application firewall, Cloudflare is doing its job instead of putting good detection mechanisms at the foundation before it even gets to that.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I think this also replies to the next question, that is that do you feel that red and blue teaming divide that much, or actually they work towards the same direction?
I think they're working towards the same direction.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, a lot of times, like when I think, I'm like, is red teaming hurting the industry? Because it does introduce a lot of tools. I think it, in the end of the day, it does help things, right? If I
Yeah.
didn't think that, I wouldn't be putting out my videos. But I think blue teaming, if you're looking for a job, is probably the way to go because not every company has an internal red team, but every company has quote unquote a blue team. They may not call it that, but they have sysadmins running things. If they don't, then chances are they'll be hacked, right? A lot of companies have like outsourced their IT to like MSPs, but I've never seen good when that happens.
Okay. I completely agree. And what is your motivation when you're doing a pen test? And what happens if you don't find a bug? Like you, when you have to do a report and you don't have enough findings, what is your answer?
Oh, this is a tough question. It really comes down to again changing the mindset. Like a lot of people think people like get pen test or red teaming because they want to find vulnerabilities when like 9 times out of 10 that's not the answer. There's a few companies that do want to know the vulnerabilities, but most of the time it's dictated by like PCI or some type of accreditation that they want,
Yeah.
right? So you hitting in a blank report probably isn't going to be the end of the day for your client. keep in mind your client will often like hand out the report to other people. Like I know PCI sometimes they request it just to see did they do a good job. So whenever like I'm doing a pen test, I always have in the back of my mind, what if I don't find anything? I want to be able to write a report that shows I did a good job, right? So that includes taking screenshots as you go, talking about things, and pretty much like I'm always envious of OXDF because when he tests a box, it does a box for the first time, he's pretty much got his blog post written because he takes that good of notes as he solves the boxes most of the time. And that's how you should approach the pen test is if you don't have a flaw, you should be able to still have a report that looks good, right? Like you'll give an executive summary that says no vulnerabilities found, so the executives are going to be happy. And then you give some detail for the sysadmin to show that you actually did work, and they'll be happy. Like they'll be learning things you did. Like, oh, he tried this attack, but I put this mod security rule in to block him. So I'm really happy that what I did was validated by seeing this actually get blocked. And then when they hand the report over to clients, they'll get a report and be like, well, there's no findings, and it looks like these guys did their job. So kudos, you're secure. Like you're satisfying all the fronts. So I think that also helps keep motivation up because you're still writing as you go. And oftentimes, if you document a lot of things and you refer back to your notes, you'll realize what you forgot. You may go back and be like, oh, I had a typo here, or maybe I should try a different payload or something like that that just sticks out when you go after it. I notice it all the time when I do videos and like I constantly make typos or something and be like, man, thankfully I still solved this box, but I'm still learning from what I did.
Okay, I completely understand. And from my point of view, it's always it's a trade-off. You cannot find all vulnerabilities in the world in a patched maybe application in 5 days. That you also in those 5 days you have to file also a report and to not work like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And because this is not a life, it has to have a balance, and it's a trade-off of how much time they give you and info, and what you can do, and also your skills and everything. So since you're advising us about reports, would you give an advice to you, not to you now, but to your younger self, like 18, 19, 20 years old?
It would probably be don't be as arrogant and take education more seriously. Like, thankfully, it worked out for me, but I think I'm like I got lucky through all the hoops. Like, I guess security is failing until you make it, and thankfully, I persevered long enough to actually somewhat make it. I think so. It worked out for me, but I don't think it will always work out. And if I was going back, I do the more like safe way and sticking with school and doing all those things. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And I know that it's not addressed to me, but if I had to answer this, I would say um, don't listen to others, do your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, next question is, at what level does scripting become imperative to hacking?
It's a tough question. I don't
Okay.
really think it becomes like imperative to hacking anytime. I think eventually you do need to learn it, but that's not hacking.
Okay.
Scripting in general, I think, becomes useful to anyone using a computer. Like, there's been so many people out there that have just automated a lot of portions of their job through scripting, and that are not related to hacking or like IT, even, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Scripting is just like something you should know if you work on the computer often, I think.
Yes.
And I remember like the Hack the Box blog, we kind of were inconsistent with how we did the capitalization on titles because like some people wanted like the normal blog of just the first letters capital, the rest or not. And then other people did like the normal like publication of camel case. So like every main letter is like the first letter of most words is capital. And it was a huge like someone thought it was being a big pain to fix that. But really, it's just 5 minutes in Python to just
Okay.
go through all the blog posts and run a library to fix the casing for you, right? A lot of people would go through the blog post individually and fix it by hand, which at the point it's like 60 posts, and each post would probably take like a minute or two. So it would be 2 hours worth of work. But if you know Python, it's like 5 to 10 minutes worth of work. So it's not really a hacking thing. It's just something that like helps a lot of people with their job. And I also think scripting helps you become a better problem solver because you start learn like it's a different way of thinking, which security is. So
Yes, I understand. And it's not about being a hacker in order to know scripting, because hacking as a concept is do things the not the intended way.
yeah.
So hacking is a mindset. And since you mentioned the blog, IppSec now also is responsible. Again, with Daphne, I think she will be very happy that you mentioned the blog, and also with a new team member, Hassan. So, how do you feel about the blog?
I like it. It's got a lot of good information, I think, on it, and we put a lot of time into every blog post to make sure there's something to take value, and that's something we do. I think at Hack the Box really well is even when a community submits, like we get a community submission, it goes to what we call the release committee, which is like 6 or 8 of us that review the write up, talk about it, and like think of what the key takeaway of the box is, and like probably 9 boxes out of 10, we get back with the author and make some slight suggestions on like making sure the goals someone gets out of a box is achieved in the best way, we think.
Okay.
And a lot of times, like I think most authors are thankful that we do that now because it only makes them and in the end look better. Like a lot of times we'll catch some like basic things.
I understand. But I agree. But if you had to change one thing in the blog post, what it would be in our blogs?
If I had to change one thing in the blog post, I don't know. It's I
Yes.
probably want more like technical blog post and
Like, what is your vision? How would you like to see the blog, not the blog post? My English were wrong. About the blog, like, how do you envision the blog?
so I'm hoping the blog serve like it's been a really tough challenge, I think, because the blog was originally like going to be like write-ups. We also offer write-ups, and a bunch of the community does write-ups for things as well. So thinking of ways we can expand upon what we already have is what I want the blog to be. So like I
Nice.
wrote a post about like my thought process into the delivery machine, which talks about like my motivation, why I created the machine, talks about a little how I implemented it. And that's what I want a lot more of the blog post to be is like from creators of boxes talking about the story behind the box, not exactly like the write up of how to solve this box, because like people do that like OXDF. I do a video like that's been done before, but every box I think has an untold story that is interesting, at least to me, and I'm hoping it's interesting to other
Yes.
people.
I think no. That what you say it's actually true, because while we went last month to Netherlands to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the meetup, and it was. And a lot of people commented this that they would like also to see the backstory and about because you said about your blogs. I really loved the one that you said it's okay to use write-ups.
Yeah.
This is an amazing post. If anyone hasn't read it, it's a must. So let's go to the next question. Uh, how are you learning coding language practically? So does it require development background?
I mean, I think development background helps, but I have no real development background when I learned it. I learned by just examining source code and trying to implement it myself. I remember probably my first program was created around AOL Instant Messenger. It was a simple thing to kick people offline through. I think it's an integer overflow in this SML smile markup language. It's like this little smiley faces. It was like the cool thing to do in the early 2000s, and like there's a lot of hackers that I still know from that scene.
Okay,
But that was back in like Visual Basics, and like I learned Visual Basic from just examining the source code of other things people put out and like saying, oh, they used this person's DLL, I think it was probably MooSoc, which is just a like DLL to connect to the AOL server.
Okay.
And that allowed them to send raw HTML in the AIM client that could potentially crash it. I didn't understand what I was doing at the time, but I
Mhm.
understand if I put a bunch of nines in this one field, the AOL client would crash.
Okay.
And like that was like how I learned coding. It eventually moved into game hacks. And again, I found places online that had the source code to it and then looked at the source code and tried to figure out what was going on. And then eventually, like just through brute force, I guess taught myself coding, and eventually I would buy books. I think I have a few books of C++ like on that bottom shelf that have been helpful.
Yeah. Well, what they say that in order to become a hacker, you need to know all coding language. Eventually, you will have to know some of everything, but the programming mindset is one. So yes, programming I think helps a lot, but you don't have to know to program in all languages. Programming is a skill. The languages can change,
Yeah.
and I love this question. I love this question. How do you manage to find a vulnerability when you're fully stuck and you have tried everything and it seems impossible?
So I think this is where like Hack the Box shines, because it offers a lot of the open-ended problems where you kind of have to like figure it out yourself, which is tough. I remember like Sneaky, I think I mentioned it in a blog post of I had done the box a completely unintended way. It was intended to find an IPv6 address through SNMP, but I figured out you could just pretty much calculate the local IP address of IPv6 and get into it that way. And I figured that out after I took a lot of time away from the computer. Like I struggled at that box for a very long time. And
No,
like
by accident, don't worry. I was reading
just
through the questions.
just like took a time off, thought about it, and then something popped in my head like IPv6 addresses aren't always random. And I did a lot of research down that and eventually found the vulnerability. I mentioned like Hack the Box being black box is good for that, because I think the problem a lot of people have nowadays is they work too much at guided learning. And I think I talked about that a little bit in the um, it's okay to use write-ups post,
Mm-hmm.
but about like there's this whole guided and exploratory learning. And guided is when you get handed a bunch of questions and that guides you down the path. And that's what I was talking about before when I was like, I didn't like before Hack the Box existed. I didn't really like it because a lot of the boxes that were being put out by the community were based like they're telling the person what to do, either through like to do.txt or something like that, that just guides them to the answer. And they don't have to find it out their own way through recon.
Okay.
So, how do you manage to find vulnerability when you're fully stuck? I think practicing getting stuck builds your endurance so you can struggle
Oh.
your way through it. I also think like taking time away allows you to do critical thinking. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was a big like esport player. I mentioned StarCraft before, which is a real time strategy game.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest pains with, I guess, video games in general is this thing called cheesing. When someone does something really cheap, it's just like a low blow, right?
Okay.
They enter the fight and do something really low skill that normally gets them a win. Um, in chess, this would be like trying to checkmate someone in 4 moves, right? It's a cheap move. If someone sees it coming, it's not going to work and it's going to set you back really far.
Mm-hmm.
But 7 times out of 10, some person may not see it and you'll still look like you're being successful, right? And that's how I view a lot of the guided things is you get that endorphin high because you're making progress, but you're missing a lot of the skills.
Yes.
And when it came to StarCraft, like I'd lose to these strategies and people always were like, your scouting is bad. I'm like, no, I sent my worker across the map and saw what I saw. And it took a long time for me to understand it's not about just sending the worker, seeing what you see. It's about reading between the lines and seeing what you don't see. In that game, like 2 people at bases, they mine minerals, they build buildings. And when you send your worker across the map, you have to find a way to count the number of workers they have very quickly because you may only see it for like 5 seconds. And you can notice based upon like the pathing, like through a pathing glitch, I could count it in like half a second. And like, oh, you're missing 2 workers. You sent 1 for scouting and you're doing like hiding a building somewhere else. Or you should have this much money. I should be able to see all this stuff. I don't see this. I'm missing 150 minerals. Where is that 150 minerals? You're not just sitting on it because it's not optimal. So the recon now became not just seeing what you see, it's seeing what, like, understanding what you don't see. So I think that's a lot with security, is people like run these tools that do a bunch of recon for them. Like, I've done my recon, I did nmap, right? No, you didn't really analyze the results. And because you ran a tool that gave you 50 pages, chances are now you just made that haystack infinitely big, and it's harder to find that needle, right? That's why in my videos, I always say run recon in the background, but I don't do this complex thing of run 10 recon tasks at once. I run them one by one so I can analyze the results slowly. So I don't so I have multiple haystacks instead of one big haystack.
Nice. Oh, that's very cool. First of all, I loved that you that you showcased that from other things not related to hacking, you learned thought process and how to stay there. I loved the thing that you said about hacking endurance. I have never heard about this term. I think we should use it more often. You build hacking endurance with the main platform machines, and I fully agree with not having 50 pages of recon and taking things slow. Amazing tips, IppSec. This is really tips and tricks from IppSec. So everyone, tomorrow we have prizes for many people. Try to go through the recon slowly. And the last question, at least from the ones that we have from the community that are pre-picked, is: do you have recommendations for setting up a local Active Directory lab and practicing enumeration exploitation techniques?
It depends what your goal is. If your goal is to learn Active Directory, I would essentially just do it, I guess. Get like VMware Workstation or something and install a bunch of Windows things and do it. But if you don't want to actually build it, like, I recommend going towards like the old retired machines and trying the newer attacks out on them, like Petit Potem, just various different attacks on it. Or going into like pro labs and trying various attacks and understanding what happens. It may be like some attack requires a fictional user on the box. Why not just set up remote desktop and be that user on the box and try to do it yourself on the lab? Take advantage of all the labs out there that are already built for you and work your way that way. But if you want to actually learn like building IOCs and things like that, I would highly recommend setting up Active Directory from the ground up, putting Sysmon, Elastic, all that stuff on yourself, and then play with it. If you want to know more, I think I have a video like finding what AV missed. I think I talk about that a lot. So
nice. Okay, and last question, but that is from me. So it's not documented and you're not prepared. So you can say something, but whenever you want. What is coming next from IppSec for Hack the Box and the community? What is your next big vision?
I actually don't know what I'm allowed to say here because I've hinted at some things that were like shorten the retirement cycle of machines. I'm also working to like improve a lot of the pro labs. So it's not retiring pro labs. I want to move some of the older pro labs to be more friendly to beginners while putting out new pro labs. So maybe just a lot of pro lab stuff to be determined. I don't know what I'm allowed to say here.
Okay. No, perfect. No, I understand. Pro lab things to be determined. We're going to change some things in the way how soon they're going to retire and release, etc., and how often. And I think have amazing also battlegrounds that you always host. That everyone is excited. I don't know. Do we have any other questions that are unanswered? I don't think so. So yes, if we had to share one tip to the community about hacking, what it would be?
It would probably be try to find ways to relate things to things you know. I think one of the key things about me is I'm really good at just relating things outside of security to security, like I did before with the whole recon and video game thing.
Hmm.
Um, for me, the best way I learn something or think about it in different ways is when I relate it to something else. I'm like, oh, it's kind of like that. And once you start building that web of things you relate to, it becomes really easy to pick up new technologies because now you're just thinking, oh, it's like that, that's like that, that's like that, right? You may
Okay.
not be 100% correct in your understanding, but the
Yes.
great thing about the internet is if you put your understanding out there, people will tell you when they're wrong because people love being right and being quote unquote smarter than you. So, um, like, always put your research out there because you'll have countless people reading it and they'll correct your understanding if you're wrong, or you may meet new friends or find jobs. Like, the best way to get a job, I think, is to put yourself out there and you'll be surprised at who ends up reading it.
Yeah. Having your own GitHub can take you places.
Yeah.
So that's it.